Hey, what's up? Cool Kid Jacob here. My hat's on backwards and I'm wearing a jean jacket. And we're going to talk about homebrew. Now, I've written my fair share of homebrew. I've got my Artificer class that I've written before, and I've also got a bunch of homebrew packs up on my Patreon if you want to go check those out. In fact, the one that we're going to be talking about today and kind of reviewing how I write homebrew is free. Everybody can go view it if they want to. The whole pack, everything in it, it's all free and it's just for you. So if you want to get some of my stuff that you can add to your D&D games, go check it out. There's a link in the description. But let's take a step back and talk about writing homebrew. So writing homebrew can be really fun, but it's also really hard. And the most difficult aspect about writing homebrew is balancing it. For example, the first thing I ever wrote in terms of homebrew that I kind of put out into the world was my improved Artificer that Marshall and I wrote together. And the goal was that we wanted to make a class like Artificer, but give you more freedom in creating inventions and making things on your own. But a lot of people were very quick to find ways to break it in terms of the spells that you could get and the combinations of the different inventions. And a lot of people were very thorough with their words on what they thought about this class on Patreon. And we were like, yeah, we were just making a class for fun. So I've learned from then that homebrew really needs to be balanced. Now, Dungeons & Dragons isn't balanced. It's not like a video game where you can track every single number and know what the outcomes are, or have this kind of programming that you can test and watch everybody play all at once. It's this free-form storytelling game. When you're balancing homebrew for Dungeons & Dragons, you're not balancing in terms of what is powerful and what isn't. It's a comparison to 5e as a module. So when you look at your Kitsune race and you look at all the other races in D&D, how does it fit in? How does it work? And is it too powerful or underpowered in comparison to the other classes? If you can do those three things, your homebrew will probably work. At least that's how I do it, and I don't know, it kind of seems to work. So anyways, that's how to balance your homebrew. Where do you start when you write homebrew? Well, that's up to you and your imagination and whatever the heck you want to come up with. And a lot of that thought and creativity can go into a place like World Anvil, our sponsor for today's video. If you follow this channel, you know about World Anvil, but let me tell you guys, this app is really awesome. We use it very frequently in almost all of our games to manage our maps, our lore, our world building, and everything. More recently in our Adventurers of Avnia game we've been running over on Arcana Arcade, Tyler has been using it to host his maps and all of his information, and it's a great resource in order for us to stick all of our notes into and never forget it. It's a lot better than writing it down on a bunch of pieces of paper and then eventually losing those pieces of paper, or scattering them through your Google Docs and not remembering where you wrote down everything. World Anvil keeps everything neatly organized and in articles so that you or even your players can look up information if you allow it to house everything for your D&D campaigns. If you want to get started homebrewing your own world, start today with World Anvil and use my code XP to level 3 to get 20% off. World Anvil is great because it's constantly updating and they're adding new features all the time, like these themes, characters, and many more things to come soon. So check it out if you want to help out them and support the channel. So let's take a look at the one that we just wrote called the Hexing Scrolls. So each pack on our Patreon kind of has like a theme, and the theme of this one was witches. We've also got like a food pack, an Underdark pack, a pirate one, a dragon one, a celestial one, a devil one, but this one was like witch themed. So we're going along things with like voodoo magic, dark magic, curses, hexing. And guess what? The hex spell is really dumb. If you've ever played a warlock or any kind of class that can use the hex spell, you may have noticed that it sucks a lot. Unless you're using something like the grappler feat, in which you can give somebody disadvantage on strength checks so that you can grapple them better. I don't know, I just feel like for a spell that takes on the name hex, it doesn't really do as much as I would hope it would. So, I made a little bit more of like a cursing spell that you could put into your games called Jinx. If you play League of Legends, shut up. Jinx is a 2nd level transmutation spell. feel like it should be Abjuration. So Jinx is a 2nd level transmutation spell. Its casting time is 1 reaction, its range is 30 feet, its components are verbal and somatic, and its duration is instantaneous. The classes you can take it are Sorcerer and Warlock, but you can give it to whatever class you want. The idea I had for this one was a mixture of 2 things: counterspell and cursing. There's this game that we've been playing recently a lot called Gloomhaven, and I love it so much. They're not sponsored, but I just love the game. It's a really fun board game. And your dice in that game are a deck of cards. And sometimes enemies can curse you. And when they curse you, you get to put basically a natural 1 called a null into your deck. So randomly as you're playing and you're attacking, you get a natural 1, and that was given to you by an enemy. And I was like, that is a cool idea for cursing people. And that should be in D&D. That would be really fun to be like, haha, your good luck is bad now. Channeling darker powers, you curse good fortune. When a creature within range makes an attack roll or ability check, they must succeed a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, the result of the roll is treated as a 1. Now, there are not a lot of things in D&D that can affect your dice rolls other than inspiration, portent, and I think, I don't know, some convoluted spell that I don't remember. But this one does break the boundaries of what you can do in 5th edition a little bit, but with the kind of added idea of like divination and portent. Maybe it should have been a divination spell. However, this spell does cost you a reaction, and you have to use it in conjunction to an ability check being rolled or an attack roll being rolled against you. So it has more use than Hex. So basically, if somebody's going to look for you, if you're stealthing, or if somebody else is going to stealth, maybe during combat, or somebody's rolling a persuasion check against you, or insight, you can give them a natural 1. The ability modifiers still apply, as is the rules of D&D, so if they're really, really, really good at inciting you, with like a plus 15, then maybe this Jinx spell won't do much to them. But attack rolls can be really helpful, because as soon as an attack roll comes down on top of you, you can give it a natural 1, or if somebody's going to attack one of your friends. So you can just diss out these natural 1s as much as you want, unless you are a warlock and you only have 2 spell slots. Now, one thing that you can't give natural 1s to is saving throws. Initially, I had it at saving throws and made it a 3rd level spell, but I realized that you could totally combo that spell with a sorcerer or any other class with cantrips and cast Toll the Dead and give them a natural 1, effectively making them fail the spell because it's a reaction. And I didn't want that kind of combo brokenness to be in the game, because as again, you got to compare it to everything else, got to look at 5e as a system and go, how would this fit into all of the game all at once? If I'm sitting here playing and somebody casts that spell, how could they use it in a way that could break it? That's what you have to do when you're writing D&D Homebrew, otherwise you're going to make a bunch of broken things that nobody's going to want to use. So, no natural 1 on saving throws. You can't throw a fireball and then jinx the guy that's in there and make him die. Like, you can't do that. But anyways, that's a jinx spell. Next we have a feat called Dark Arcanum Initiate. So Dark Arcanum Initiate is kind of like a mixture of the Elemental Adept spell and the Magic Initiate spell to kind of create some kind of dark magic wielder that infuses it. It's an edgy feat for warlocks. You've unlocked the secrets of foul magic. When you roll damage for a spell that deals necrotic damage, you can treat any 1 on the damage dice as a 2. Additionally, you learn the spells Chill Touch, Toll the Dead, and Hex. So yeah, you get Hex. You could probably replace it with Jinx if you wanted to, but it is a 2nd level spell, and I was trying to frame it around 2 cantrips, 1 leveled spell, so Hex works out. And some of you may be thinking, hey, this is kind of powerful, since you're kind of combining the best of 2 spells into 1. On the contraire, you don't get to pick the spells that you get like the Magic Initiate feat. Instead, they're just kind of given to you. Also on the contraire, feats are supposed to be really strong. Have you ever seen any of the feats? Have you ever read any of them? They're really strong, and you have to make them strong because some of these feats are ridiculous, like Lucky. I also wrote an encounter in this homebrew pack called A Veiled Exchange. I won't spoil all of it here in case any of you dungeon masters want to run it for your players, and I don't know, maybe your players are watching this video. It's an encounter where the players find a sobbing woman in the middle of the road, and they'll have a moral quandary about what to do to save a little girl stuck out there in the swamps. Who knows what could be lurking out there? But there's this one little area called the Pixie Hive. I was inspired by the Hell Wasp nests in Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus, where there's basically these big Hell Wasp nests that attract angels, and the angels get stuck to them and can't free themselves. I had that idea for like a hag trap. So a hag needs to gather materials from fae-like beings, so they create a tree and lather it in this resin that attracts pixies and sprites. So there's this tree called the Pixie Hive, and when the players go over to it, they'll see this tree covered in pixie corpses, and some of them attempting to get free but can't seem to get free from the tree, and if you touch the tree, you take necrotic damage. So that's for your nightmares. I really like traumatizing my players. And finally, we have the Druid subclass, the Circle of the Occult. Druids of the Occult have delved into the strange aspects of the world and have learned rites and rituals to contact trickster nature spirits. These druids are studiers of forgotten dark magic that to some serves an evil purpose in the world. Occult druids harness this power for other motives and use it to protect and help nature by learning it. Occult druids are often mistaken for hags or witches, but they are only conduits for its power and do not necessarily have nefarious needs. It's a voodoo druid. Kind of like a shaman, basically. There's no shaman class in D&D, and I had the idea that like a witch hag kind of class for a character could definitely fit into a druid rather than like a warlock. They all get that stuff anyways. You can figure it out there. But with a druid, they're already in tune with nature and weird tree animal stuff anyways, so why not give them strange dark magic powers? At second level, you get extra spells, and also at second level, you get Curse Transformation. You can use your wild shape on other beings, as so long as they're willing. So you're basically a druid that can go to your party's tiefling and be like, do you want to turn into a toad? And yeah, or a jaguar, something, I don't know. But yeah, you can use your wild shape on other creatures. It still uses it in the same rule set as wild shape. They can take the form and they can go out of it if they want to, but and it still uses your uses each day, so you only get 2 and they can only be in it for so many hours at a time. At 6th level is Rite of the Dark Spirits. Basically, every long rest you get to pick a little ability and attune to one of the spirits, and each spirit gives you a special ability. Spirit of the Intermediaries gives you telepathy and allows you to speak other creatures' languages. Spirit of Healing gives you a pool of hit dice and lets you heal each day. Spirit of Creation lets you make people drunk. Anybody drunk. We got this idea from like Loa spirits, and the Loa spirit of creation values white rum a lot and drunkenness. So the spirit of creation grants you the ability to make somebody poisoned, incapacitated, and prone. Spirit of Charm gives you advantage on charisma ability checks and saving throws, and creatures who have disadvantage on charisma checks against you. And Spirit of Reflection, gain a +2 to armor class, and advantage on dex saving throws. You can only attune to 1 at a time per long rest. At level 10, you get the improved Curse Transformation. 10th level, your wild shape can be used on non-willing creatures. So you can threaten that orc over there by turning him into a toad, and he has to make a wisdom save, and you can just do that. Once they're in the transformation, they cannot control coming out of it, only you can. So it's kind of like a weird version of polymorph, but it uses your wild shape statistics and abilities. And then finally at 14th level, we have Friends on the Other Side. Basically, you can cast Wish every 30 days, but there's a catch. This wish is granted to you by these strange Loa spirits, and Dungeon Masters granting this wish should remember that these guys are pretty much tricksters and strange beings, and may not always grant the wish entirely truthfully, or may create a bargain out of this or something like that. But regardless, it's up to the DM on how that one works. I just thought it would be a kind of a fun thing. Anyways, that's the Hexing Scrolls, the homebrew pack that we created over on Patreon. We have a bunch of other ones as well that I mentioned earlier that all have themed content like this that you can throw into your games. And if you want to support the channel, support me, and get yourself some homebrew, go check out the Patreon. Why not, you know? And make sure to check out our sponsor, World Anvil, and I will see you guys next video. How do I close this one? That's the end of the video!